Moolala is brought to you by the nonprofit credit counseling agency Credit Canada. If you are feeling the pinch financially, waiting 2 weeks for payday can be a really, really big challenge. There are now some new options as a workaround there. There are these on-demand pay platforms that can make it possible to get paid earlier. One of them comes from a company called Ceridian. They are a human resources software company. They launched something called Dayforce Wallet, which is an on-demand pay platform available to employers here in Canada. And we're going to talk to Aaron Fox, Vice President of Commercial Operations at Ceridian, to hear more about how this works. He's in Fairfield, Connecticut. Hello there, Aaron.
Hello, Bruce. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. What exactly is an on-demand pay platform?
On-demand pay is getting paid immediately after you work. So if you're an hourly employee, you finish your shift. If you're a salaried employee, you finish your day. And the wages for those days are presented to you in an application. Then you have a choice. You can bring forward some to all of those wages in advance of the traditional pay period. So in short, what's happening is the traditional pay period, which is usually 2 weeks, bi-monthly or monthly, has been replaced with something much faster. And this is a benefit that employers are offering to their employees.
And why is it a benefit? What is the advantage to the employee?
To the employee, it's often a financial wellness tool, but it really empowers employees in so many other ways. They've been empowered and they've given things so much faster and more immediate. But it's really best thought of as a financial wellness tool, because if you think about it, employees and really people need something like this to better manage their financial lives. The Canadian Payroll Association talks about 1 to 3 Canadians living paycheck to paycheck. The same association talks about Canadians not being able to come up with $1,000 in a pinch if they were to need it. So the way that this offers them financial wellness is it allows them to bring forward wages if they need to put something on their credit card, for example. They can avoid doing that and avoid interest-bearing forms of debt. And there's also a benefit of just simply knowing it's there. I'm sure, Bruce, you feel the same way as I do, that just knowing that there's a financial backing in your life gives you a sense of security and allows you to reduce stress, which is so often caused by financial stress.
What are the cons? What are the cons of giving an employee access to money as it is earned?
We don't see many cons. There certainly are probably some people out there who would better manage money if it was given to them only on a bi-weekly or bi-monthly basis. But those people have the option to manage their money as they do today. Many employers raise these kind of concerns and they come from a really good place. But the data that we have shows us that this is not leading people to manage their money in a less optimal way. The data that we see shows that people are using this for everyday purchases, everyday spending patterns. And it's really, the feedback we hear is it's really giving them a sense of security that they would like to have if their employer offered this to them.
Well, and I'm glad you referenced data because you have it and I don't. But I will tell you the concern that I have is that less frequent pay periods typically enable people to develop the skill around budgeting, some of which, some people who develop that skill and some don't. But the reason it's so important is that they pay their cell phone once a month. They pay their rent or their mortgage, mostly, not entirely, but mostly once a month. Their utility bills are once a month. So if they get access to money on a shorter term basis, when it comes to those big lumpy expenses, they may not have enough.
Well, what if they could pay those bills faster? What if they weren't leaving those bills for every month, as you say, or every 2 weeks, as you say? The data that we show, as I mentioned before, shows that people are taking about $110, which has been remarkably consistent over the 3 years we've been doing this in North America. They're taking 5 to 6 on-demand pay requests per pay period. And when we see at an aggregate level their spending patterns, which is just about all we can see from a privacy standpoint, they're so consistent. It's supermarkets, gasoline stations, fast food establishments, and eating places, as they're called. They're using this to float their day-to-day expenses. And we believe that's helping them with their overall financial life.
When you say $110, is that per each time, 5 times 110, or is it 510 over the or 110 over the course of a month?
It's $110, 5 to 6 times requested per month.
Gotcha. So it could be $550 over the course of a month. Maybe your gross take-home pay is $2,000 or $3,000. So it is certainly not, people are not trying to withdraw the lion's share of their salary.
They're not. And look, more anecdotally, Bruce, we have over 850 customers in North America that are live, that have made this benefit available to their employees. And we have not had one come back to me and say, I need to turn this off, because the feedback I'm getting from my employees is that this is putting them in a worse place than they were before. It's just not something we see. And as I mentioned before, with the spending patterns, what we do see is they are taking that $110 5 to 6 times per month, but they're using it on expenses that they need on a day-to-day basis. And what we hope to see as well is that they're avoiding putting things on their credit card, getting into a further debt trap, and even using something like payday loans, which 70% of low-income Canadians do. So we hope that those things are helping their financial life, and that is the feedback that we get back.
And I think, from where I sit, the big opportunity here is with the segment of the population that does rely on a payday loan, because the rates are ridiculous if you have to go that route.
I feel comfortable saying I would love this to be a disruptor of that industry, and I think sounds like you agree too.
Yeah.
That would be a wonderful thing if we can use something like this to reduce the dependency on those things. But I will say that we do see a lot of hourly employees using this, those that fit the description that you just provided, but we also see salaried employees too. Salaried employees, particularly those that live in major urban areas, do often live paycheck to paycheck. And even those that don't, we hear several points of feedback from employees that say, I like to use this as a place to help myself budget. I advance some of my wages here, even though I'm a salaried employee. I set them aside, and we're creating tools in the application that would also enable them to have that experience.
And they can only access funds that they have earned. So there is no way to get an advance.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to respond to that. Yes, and that is a key distinguisher of our product, Dayforce Wallet. Our killer application at Ceridian is that we have a continuous calculation engine running in the background for all employees that receive our pay. We're running gross to net calculations that are fully compliant. And when we offer wages to an employee, or they request them more specifically, we're treating it like a compliant payday. So we've already set aside any flat financial obligation that they need to pay, and we've calculated taxes on whatever they've earned at that point in the pay period. So what they're being presented in the app is net pay. This is your take-home pay, and if they choose to take that, they're only taking from that amount itself.
Demographically, it is younger employees who are using this. What's your insight as to why that is? I have some hypotheses. What are yours?
The younger employee seeks experiences in their professional life that resemble those in their personal life. And another way of saying what I just said is things that are on demand, things that are more immediate. For an employee who is maybe of a Gen Z population, the idea of waiting every 2 weeks to get paid is so out of step with the way they're living the rest of their lives. So I think that's one of the reasons that we see it's skewing towards younger employees, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we're entirely in that demographic. We certainly have a variety of use cases and people using this.
There, I can hear in the way you speak, there is a layer of behavioral finance that informs this process, and I think to the good. The other area of behavioral finance that is connected is around saving, and of course the seminal work done by Thaler on Save More Tomorrow. What's the other side of this? So if you're enabling spending that is grounded in behavioral finance, how can you use Dayforce Wallet and your technology to help those employees behave in a way that serves their future self from a saving perspective?
We're thinking a lot about that specifically, and a feature that we will roll out in the United States shortly, and we'll have a fast follow in Canada, will be a savings feature within the application, which effectively serves like a side account. So an employee can set a goal and say, I'd like to save towards a holiday. I'd like to save towards a birthday gift to my child. And then we will track their progress towards that. And by visualizing their pay and taking that immediately from what's available to them in net, they can more effectively track towards that goal, have the experience of tracking towards it, and see how that accumulates over time. And I think that's one way we're doing that.
What is the 5 to 10 year look of the pay platforms that you run? Where are we headed? I mean, this was not a glimmer in the eye of the employee 3 years ago. You've obviously been focused on it for probably longer than that. But what else could we expect as we look to the future? And I love that I'm asking this question because I think for most people, they cannot think of a more boring thing, innovation in the payment space. Given what you do and given what I do, I'm like, oh yeah, like what else is going to happen? This is exciting. What else are you working on?
I laugh because I speak at payroll conferences, and we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that there hasn't been much innovation in this space. But look, where are we going to be in 5 years? I think a couple of things. I think this will be a normalized way to pay. The only reason we're really paying this way is because we didn't have the technology to do it. We needed 2 weeks to process things, to be accurate, to be compliant. We don't need that anymore because we have tech. And I think employers are recognizing that, and they'll begin to offer this as a standard way of pay. So I think it will seem odd in 5 years from now to have a 2-week pay period, or at least not have the optionality to do this. I think you'll see increased features within these applications that make employees more excited to use them and give employers maybe opportunities to communicate with their employees through this mechanism in a whole new way. For us here at Ceridian, we'll continue to add exciting features, and we'll continue to go global. We just launched 4 weeks ago in the United Kingdom, and we have our eyes on other markets as well. So I think this will be global. I think it will be more common, and I think there will be more experience embedded within these applications than there are today.
Really interesting stuff. Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
It is absolutely my pleasure.
Aaron Fox is Vice President of Commercial Operations at Ceridian, and he was here to talk about on-demand pay platforms. And I will say, don't tell Aaron this, but he did reduce some of the concern that I have about instant gratification and an employee's inability to pay for the bigger things, because that's not what we're currently seeing. So we'll see.